research focused on better understanding employment outcomes and services for job seekers with intellectual and developmental disabilities. This work was conducted with our partner at the University of Massachusetts Boston's Institute for Community Inclusion. And the importance of this research is really to better understand and better improve employment outcomes for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And it matters because many people with IDD want to work and can work, but aren't necessarily working in competitive integrated employment. First and foremost, this study examined employment consultant practices. Employment consultants are employment support professionals who work in provider organizations around the United States. Employment consultants may provide job coaching services, placement services, follow-along services, or even those early discovery services that we see in employment services and supports. Employment consultants play a critical role in connecting job seekers with disabilities to employers that are hiring. So it was really important for us to understand the practices that employment consultants engage in that may be facilitators or barriers to supporting people with IDD getting, finding, and keeping employment. This line of research utilized a daily activity survey in which an employment consultant received a notification on their phone where they answered 3 primary questions. What were you doing? Who were you doing it with? And where were you doing it? And these 3 questions provided critical insights into how employment consultants were spending their days. And the reason that this is so important is that although there is a large body of literature that talk about what are best practices for supporting job seekers with IDD, what we find is that very few employment support professionals and employment consultants in the field actually implement those practices in their day-to-day practices. And so what we want to better understand again is how and what are people doing and where are they doing those things. And this daily survey really allowed us to take basically a snapshot of those daily activities. Employment consultants reported that they spent about 30% of their daily activities in administrative functions. That might be going to meetings not related to a specific job seeker. It might be completing paperwork or doing other functions within the agency. And that 30% of time does represent a portion of their day that they're not directly working with job seekers, businesses, or family members. Another important finding from this particular study is that we really found a strong relationship between the culture and the nature of an organization and how an individual employment consultant practices. Organizations that maybe had good support practices and good structure to support their employment consultants really allowed employment consultants to flourish and provide more and different types of support services to job seekers with IDD. An additional finding of this particular study was the development of a comprehensive model of employment supports for job seekers with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And what this comprehensive model represents is a map, if you will, of key support activities that employment consultants can do that support the placement of a job seeker with an intellectual disability. And those key components include things like building trust, getting to know the job seeker, finding tasks rather than looking for specific jobs, and paying special attention to supports before hire. And when you sort of package those support activities in a coordinated way, we often found that employment consultants reported that when they engaged in some of these specific activities, they were more likely to be able to help individuals with IDD secure employment. This line of research also examined a number of national data sets to better understand the employment outcomes of individuals with IDD. This included looking at national data sets such as the National Core Indicators, the RSA 911, which is Rehab Service Administration 911, it's vocational rehabilitation data, as well as American Community Survey data. And that includes a national data set looking at the population across the United States. And we conducted a number of quantitative analyses that helped us understand some of the different factors that contributed to people with disabilities finding and keeping jobs, as well as some of the barriers both on an individual level and more on a system level that prevented people with IDD from being successful or securing employment long term. A few key lessons learned from this line of research include the importance of microlearning for employment consultants in the field. What employment consultants who participated in our studies told us is that when they received the daily survey, it really forced them to stop and think about what they were doing and how they were spending their time. Microlearning could be defined as structured mindfulness, where an individual stops or pauses in their day-to-day activities and critically thinks about the activity that they're currently engaged in, and that occurring sort of in regular intervals over time really help them sort of connect the dots, like, gosh, what I do here in this moment matters, and I can, trace that to the other kinds of things I want to get done in my work. Another key lesson would be is that there really is a critical intersection and overlap between how employment consultants practice and what they practice and the organizational culture and context that exists around them. And so organizational culture influences how employment consultants practice, and employment consultant practices are deeply influenced by the organizational culture in which they exist. A final lesson learned would be continually being able to look at and examine different features within the field and the industry that both serve as facilitators and barriers to people with IDD, basically finding, securing, and maintaining employment, and understanding both on organizational, state, and national level how we can influence those factors to improve employment outcomes for people with disabilities. Future research in this area will continue to focus on the intersection of employment consultant practices and organizational culture. In addition, further examination of national data sets looking at various indicators of employment outcomes will be critical in understanding the intersection of both individual level factors and system level factors and how they influence employment outcomes for people with IDD. And last but not least, future research will certainly focus on the importance and the value of micro-learning for direct support professionals as well as employment consultants in the industry, and understanding how those moment-in-time interventions or pauses in our practice can influence how we provide supports to individuals with IDD.